Air travel can be routine, but some airports push the limits of engineering, geography, and human skill. From cliff-edge runways to snow-covered airstrips, certain locations demand precision from every pilot who approaches them. These places show just how challenging aviation can truly become. We're taking a look at airports that present unique challenges to pilots and passengers. From short runways perched on cliff edges to high-altitude locations surrounded by mountains, we're taking a look at 15 of the most dangerous airports in the world. Let's begin today with number 15, the Courchevel International Airport in France. Courchevel Airport is an altaport serving Courchevel, a ski resort in the French Alps. The airfield has a very short runway of only 1,762 feet with a gradient of 18.6%. There's no go-around procedure here for landings at Courchevel due to the surrounding mountainous terrain. The airfield primarily sees use by smaller fixed-wing craft like a Cessna 208 Caravan or a Pilatus PC-12, as well as helicopters. The runway has no instrument approach either or lighting aids, making landing in fog or low clouds pretty unsafe. The History Channel show Most Extreme Airports ranks this as the 7th most extreme airport in the world, and it's also featured in films including the James Bond movie Tomorrow Never Dies. In 2016, a Piper PA-34N-1010FM stalled during a landing flare, leading to a hard landing which ruptured the left main landing gear. In 2016, a Eurocopter lost control on final approach at 10 meters. The helicopter struck the ground and landed on its right side, causing a total loss of the aircraft. In 2017, a Pilatus PC-12 crashed on landing, following the pilot carrying out the final 5% lower than the guide slope. In 2019, Blue Wing's Piper PA-46 crashed into a wall of snow after the pilot throttled back too late on the landing. There were 2 minor injuries recorded. And in 2024, another Pilatus PC-12 crashed on landing, with the aircraft overrunning onto a snow-covered embankment and a wing being torn off. There were 2 crew members on board and no fatalities. So yep, pretty dangerous airport to land at. Number 14. Poro Airport, Bhutan. Bhutan International Airport is the sole international airport of the 4 airports in Bhutan. It's 3.5 miles from Poro in a deep valley on the bank of a river. With surrounding peaks as high as 18,000 feet, it is considered one of the world's most challenging airports, and only a very small number of pilots are certified to land there. In 1968, the Indian Border Roads Organization built an airstrip in the Poro Valley, which was initially used for on-call helicopter operations by the Indian Armed Forces on behalf of the Royal Government of Bhutan. Bhutan's first airline, Truk Air, was established by royal charter on 5 April 1981. The airport was constructed with a 3,900-foot runway, giving the Bhutanese government specific requirements. They required an 18 to 20-seat stall or short takeoff and landing-capable aircraft with operating capabilities which included high service ceilings, rate of climb, and high maneuverability. The major requirement for the aircraft was that it must be capable of flying from Kolkata to Kolkata, a 750-mile round trip without refueling due to minimal infrastructure availability at Poro. Only 17 qualified pilots are authorized to land here. The dramatic approach to the runway is completely out of sight for the pilots until the last minute as they maneuver between the mountains at a 45-degree angle before dropping quickly onto the runway. There's even a point when the bottom of the plane comes perilously close to mountaintop homes on approach. One specific red cliffside home is the key focal point for pilots on their approach. Number 13. Wancho Ayeraskan Airport in Sabah. The Wancho Ayeraskan Airport is on the Dutch Caribbean island of Sabah. Its runway is widely acknowledged as the shortest commercial runway in the world, with a length of 400 meters. The airport, named after the minister Wancho Ayeraskan, has the shortest commercial runway in the world, only 1,312 feet long, flanked on one side by very high hills. The airport's closed to jet traffic, but regional airline propeller craft are able to land there under waivers from the Netherlands until Civil Aviation Authority. The most common aircraft to land here are the stallcraft, the short takeoff and landing ones, like the de Havilland Canada DH-6C Twin Otter and the Britain-Norman BN-2 Islander. Jet aircraft are unable to land here because the runway is way too short. The ramp also has a designated helipad. A terminal building houses offices for wind, air, immigration, and security, a fire department with 1 fire truck, and a tower. The only airline currently providing scheduled services to and from here is locally owned Winair, which operates daily flights to St. Martin aboard DH-6 Twin Otters. On average, flights to St. Martin that last no longer than 15 minutes, only well-trained pilots are allowed to fly in the area. The approach is almost like a cliff alongside the jagged terrain of Sabah. The idea of building an airport here on Sabah was credited to Remy de Haenen, who brought the idea to the Sabah Economic Council, along with a contractor named Jacques Deliver. After surveying the island by air, de Haenen suggested the then privately owned Flat Point as the site for the airport. The land was cleared and graded in only a couple of weeks, and de Haenen made the first landing on an aircraft on the island of Sabah in February 9, 1959, with nearly the entire population of the island in attendance. Number 12. Mitikane Airstrip, Lesotho. And now, an airport, or airstrip to be specific, which is widely known as the world's scariest runway, which needless to say is pretty unique, but it's also a living nightmare to take off from. When it comes to taking off, Mitikane Airstrip is a genuine hair-raiser. Things start out looking pretty normal as your plane picks up speed on the ground. It's only when you reach the end of the 1,600-foot long grass strip that you'll notice something weird. You know that feeling you get when you're on a roller coaster? Yeah, you're free falling. Mitikane Airstrip's short runway ends abruptly at the top of a 1,900-foot tall cliff, leading to a very thin margin of error for taking off and landing. The strip is found in the heartlands of Lesotho, a small country completely enclaved by its only neighbor, South Africa. Lesotho is mostly rural, and because its transportation infrastructure is underdeveloped, people need to use small planes to get around. Typically, you'd be a doctor or someone from an aid organization using the airstrip to reach communities that would otherwise be inaccessible. Hopefully, those doctors don't mind a bit of a rush. Number 11. Wellington International Airport, New Zealand. Wellington's got a reputation for sometimes rough and turbulent landings, even in larger aircraft, due to the channeling effect of the Cook Strait creating a strong and gusty wind, especially in prefrontal northwesterly conditions. Formerly known as Rongotai Airport, it's an international airport located in the suburb of Rongotai in Wellington, the capital of New Zealand, which serves as a hub for Air New Zealand and Sounds Air. Wellington is a joint venture between Infratil and the Wellington City Council, which operates the airport, and Wellington is the third busiest airport in New Zealand, after Auckland and Christchurch, handling a total of over 3.4 million passengers in the year ending June 2022. It is home to some of the smaller general aviation businesses, including the Wellington Aero Club, which operates from the general aviation area on the western side of the runway. The airport comprises about a small 270-acre site on the Rongotai Isthmus, a stretch of low-lying land between Wellington proper and the Miramar Peninsula. It operates a single 6,827-foot runway with ILS in both directions. In spite of the short runway and frequent winds, there have been very few safety incidents here, with the following exceptions. At the airshow held on opening day in 1959, there were 2 significant incidents. A Royal New Zealand Air Force Sunderland flying boat scraped its keel along the runway during a low pass in turbulent conditions. It returned to its base at Hobsonville and was beached for repair. A Royal Air Force Avro Vulcan bomber aborted its landing when it touched down short of the runway, rupturing its left main landing gear drag link. The aircraft then flew to Okahia Air Base, where it was stranded for several months while being repaired. In 1963, Vickers 807 Viscount ZKBWO, City of Dunedin, of the National Airways Corporation, overran the southern end of the runway and ended up being damaged down an embankment on the adjacent public road. And in 1991, United Airlines Boeing 747 made an emergency landing here after its intended destination, Auckland Airport, was closed by fog. It was estimated that if the plane had continued to its planned alternate destination, Christchurch, it would have had an unacceptable 15 minutes of fuel on board. Number 10. Williams Field, Antarctica. Well, you can see why this airport, or airstrip, made this list. Williams Field, or Willie Field, is a United States Antarctic program airfield in Antarctica. Williams Field consists of 2 snow runways located on approximately 25 feet of compacted snow, lying on top of 8 to 10 feet of ice, floating over 1,800 feet of water. The airport, which is about 7 miles from Ross Island, serves McMurdo Station and New Zealand's Scott Base. Until the 2009 season, Williams was the major airfield for on-continent aircraft operations in Antarctica. The field is named in honor of Richard T. Williams, a United States Navy equipment operator who drowned when his D-8 tractor broke through the ice on January 6, 1956. Williams and other personnel were participants in the first Operation Deep Freeze, a U.S. military mission to build a permanent science station at McMurdo. Workers last moved to the airfield during the 1984-85 season, and subsequent personnel housed at Williams lived in buildings constructed on sleds to facilitate relocation. In 1994, the National Science Foundation constructed 2 dorm buildings at McMurdo. Transport to Williams Field uses various vehicles, including foremost Delta II and Ford E350 vans. And yeah, you guessed it, there have indeed been a number of incidents and accidents. In 1956, a Douglas C-124 Globemaster II of the USAF was damaged beyond repair when the nose gear failed. All 17 occupants survived. The plane's parts were used to fix 2 other Globemasters damaged in accidents at McMurdo. In 1957, a Douglas Road 4-6L of the U.S. Navy crashed on takeoff due to water freezing in the fuel lines. There were no fatalities, and the plane was written off. And in 1971, a Lockheed LC-130 Hercules of the U.S. Navy crashed on takeoff in poor visibility when the main left ski hit a 5.5-foot snowbank and the right wing hit the ground and broke between engines. The aircraft was destroyed by fire. There were no fatalities. The plane was taking part in Operation Deep Freeze. Number 9. Princess Juliana International Airport, St. Martin. Princess Juliana International Airport is the main airport on the Caribbean island of St. Martin. The airport is located on the Dutch side of the island in the country of St. Martin, close to the shore of Simpson Bay Lagoon. In 2015, the airport handled over 1.8 million people and around 60,000 aircraft movements. It serves as a hub for Wind Air and is the major gateway for the smaller Leeward Islands, including Anguilla, Saba, and St. Bartholomew. It's named after Queen Juliana of the Netherlands, who landed there while she was heir presumptive in 1944, the year after the airport opened. So what makes it dangerous to land at? Well, the airport has a very low-altitude flyover landing approach because one end of its runway is extremely close to the shore and Maho Beach. In other words, planes appear to be coming into land just feet above the heads of the public. The proximity of Maho Beach to the runway has made the airport one of the world's favorite places among planespotters, despite the dangers. But in 2017, a New Zealand woman died from injuries sustained by a jet blast from a departing aircraft, and tourists have been often criticized for their dangerous behavior on the beach. As you might expect, this place has also seen its fair share of accidents. In 1972, a de Havilland Twin Otter, operated by Air Guadeloupe on behalf of Air France, crashed at night into the ocean near St. Martin, en route from Guadeloupe. All 11 passengers on board, along with both pilots, died. In 2014, Skyway Enterprises Flight 7101, a short SIST 360, on behalf of FedEx, from St. Martin to San Juan with a crew of 2, was climbing out of St. Martin's runway 28 when the aircraft lost height and impacted waters about 2 nautical miles off the coast. Both pilots died. And in 2017, a tourist was severely injured holding an airport fence when a jet blast from a plane taking off resulted in her losing grip from the fence. She was transported to a local hospital where she later died. Number 8. Narsarsuaq Airport, Greenland. This airport, with the amazingly difficult name to pronounce, is located in the southern part of Greenland and in the middle of the countless fjords. The strong winds here are the most threatening element to landing on the 6,000-foot runway, and don't even think about visiting here if the neighboring volcano erupts with blinding ash. The airfield at Narsarsuaq was built by the Defense Department as an Army airbase, and its construction began in July of 1941, and the first aircraft landing happened in January 1942. During World War II, the airbase, codenamed Bluey West 1, hosted squadrons of Catalina flying boats and B-25 Mitchell bombers with the assignment to escort Allied convoys and track destroyed German subs. After the war, the airport served as a regional focus city for Air Greenland until the late 2000s, when tough economic conditions forced the airline to raise the low-season prices several times. The new airport in Qaqortoq is currently under construction and is scheduled to open in 2025. This eliminates the need for the Narsarsuaq as a domestic and Iceland-bound gateway to South Greenland. In 2022, the Greenlandic government decided that Narsarsuaq should be downscaled to a heliport, losing the runway. General aviation, historic planes, and ferry flights crossing the North Atlantic must use alternative airports for refueling. Accidents have been mercifully few here, but there have been a couple. In 1957, a DC-4 freight aircraft operated by U.S. Overseas Airlines hit the ice cap on approach. 2 were killed of the 3 on board, and in 2001, a Dassault Falcon 20C freight aircraft crashed on approach here. In a planned fuel stop going from Poland to the US, 3 people were killed, including a passenger. Moving on to number 7. Gisborne Airport, New Zealand. Alright, we're back with the Kiwis. Located in the outskirts of Gisborne in New Zealand, this airport actually has a railway intersecting with the runway. I guess so you can make a last-minute decision to travel by rail if you suddenly feel airsick. Needless to say, it makes the average landing far from average. With 3 grass runways and 1 main runway, it intersects with the railway line. When the airport was first built, the rail line had been at the end of the runway, but the runway had since been extended across the line, so 2/3 of the runway is on one side of the railway line. The airport was critical in a region that was challenging to drive to. Passenger numbers through the airport had steadily increased over the years, as was the case with most regional airports as flying became more available. And in March of 2023, about 210,000 passengers passed through this airport. In the first year, the number was above 200,000, and the types of people flying had changed markedly. Now, more tourists and people connecting with friends and family, for example people working in the mines in Australia, are flying into Gisborne. And while fares aren't cheap, they were way more affordable than they were 30 years ago. Early model Boeing 737s had landed here at the airport, but the runway wasn't long enough for more modern Airbus A320s. Now, Air NZ fly about 7 return flights a day into Gisborne from Auckland and Wellington, using its 50-seater de Havilland Q300 craft. Sun Air Aviation also flew a couple of return trips a day to Napier. A 6.1-hectare solar farm, the largest operational solar farm in the country according to the airport, also opened within the airport precinct in November. It has 8,000 solar panels and is expected to produce enough electricity to power over 1,000 typical homes, which is pretty nice. Number 6. Barra International Airport in Scotland. This airport is located on a Scottish beach in the shallow bay of a remote island, so pilots flying to the airport have to worry about severe weather conditions as well as the rising tides. The airport is only 5 feet above sea level, and all 3 runways are completely submerged during high tide. Barra Airport is a short runway airport, or a stall port, situated in the wide, shallow Bay of Tremor at the northern tip of the island of Barra in the Outer Hebrides in Scotland. And, once again, the airport is unique, and is believed to be the only one in the world where scheduled flights use a tidal beach as the runway. Barra Airport opened in 1936, and the only destination is Glasgow. The beach is also popular with visitors and cockle pickers, who are asked to observe the windsock to see if the airport is in operation. In 2011, Barra Airport was voted number 1 in the world's top airport approaches by a poll conducted by privatefly.com, up from 10th place in 2010. The beach is set out with 3 runways in a triangle marked by permanent wooden poles. This almost always allows the DH-6 Twin Otter aircraft that serve the airport to land into the wind. At high tide, these runways are underwater, and flight times vary with the tide. Emergency flights occasionally operate at night from the airport, with vehicle lights used to illuminate the runway and reflective strips laid on the beach. The Civil Aviation Authority ordinary license that allows flights for the public transport of passengers or for flying instruction is authorized by the licensee, Highlands and Islands Airport Limited. The aerodrome is not licensed for night use. Number 5. Tioman Airport, Malaysia. The landing at Tioman Airport has pilots heading straight for a mountain and then making a quick 90-degree turn to line up with the runway. This one-way landing has to be very fast since the end of the runway has a cliff at it, with a steep fall into the water. Tioman Airport is on the beautiful island of Tioman, off the coast of Malaysia, and the island is only about 39 kilometers long and about 12 kilometers at its widest point, and it's only about 32 kilometers from the mainland. There are 8 villages here offering various standards of accommodation and facilities, but they all have in common the wonderful white sand beaches and crystal clear blue sea. A new airport for Tioman was supposed to have been started in 2004. It would have seen the airport site move some 2 kilometers up to Kampung Paya and been built on reclaimed land. The plan was put forward to include a 2,000-meter-long runway so bigger planes like a Boeing 737 could be accommodated. Landing here used to be quite a scary experience, but now the runway has been extended and it's slightly less hair-raising. The pilot has to head straight for the mountain range and make a very sharp turn to line up for it, and accuracy is vital as that sheer drop over the edge is pretty bad. Takeoffs aren't much more pleasant either. Number 4. Gibraltar International Airport. Gibraltar International Airport, previously known as Northfront Airport, is the civilian airport that serves the British Overseas Territory. The runway and aerodrome is owned by the Ministry of Defence, and it's operated by the Royal Air Force as RAF Gibraltar. Civilian operators use the civilian-operated terminal, and National Air Traffic Services hold the contract for provision of air navigation. Winston Churchill Avenue, the main road heading towards the land border with Spain, intersects the airport runway and consequently has to be closed every time an aircraft needs to land or depart. This short runway also abruptly ends at the sea on both ends, forcing pilots to hit the brakes immediately after landing, so that's not too great. The History Channel program Most Extreme Airports ranked this one the 5th most extreme in the world. It's exposed to strong crosswinds around the Rock of Gibraltar, which makes landings in winter really challenging. A custom-painted Boeing 737 was used in conjunction with a fleet of the airport appeared on the Channel 5 series, Gibraltar, Britain in the Sun, which was broadcast from June to July of 2013. The airstrip and the Four Corners border crossing featured at the end of Carol Reed's 1963 production of The Running Man. Several takes were shot as Remick and Harvey chase each other, firstly through the border and later as the light aircraft took off from the eastern end of the runway, narrowly missing an RAF Halifax aircraft. Number 3. Madeira Airport, Portugal. Engineers had to build a platform to expand this runway, where the landing strip is located between steep cliffs and the ocean. They built up a series of platforms on an artificial island extending from the current runway. Over 180 columns were used to hold up the runway and have to withstand serious shock and loading during landings. Madeira Airport, officially Cristiano Ronaldo International Airport, is an international airport in the civil parish of Santa Cruz in the Portuguese archipelago and autonomous region of Madeira. It mostly hosts flights to European metropolitan destinations due to Madeira's importance as a leisure destination. It is the 4th busiest airport in Portugal and is named after Madeira native Cristiano Ronaldo, considered one of the greatest footballers of all time. During its renaming ceremony in 2017, the airport drew in media notoriety for an infamous bust of Ronaldo unveiled at the ceremony. Now it's been replaced. As already mentioned, the airport is considered one of the most peculiarly perilous airports in the world due to its location and its spectacular runway construction. A limited amount of pilots are technically qualified to fly into this airport after completing advanced training on a sim. The airport involves coordinated efforts in spotting landmarks on approach since there's no instrument landing here. The airport is also dangerous due to the strong winds and high mountains on one side and the ocean on the other. Number 2. Svalbard Airport in Norway. This 8,000-foot runway is built directly on ice. Under the runways are these culverts allowing for water to run from the mountain. Due to the lack of runway lights, the flights are only permitted during daylight, thus hindering flights during the winter when the sun never rises. The airports needed to be built on permafrost with the runway insulated against the ground so it won't melt during the summer. Svalbard is the main airport serving Svalbard in Norway. It's about 3.1 miles northwest of Longyearbyen on the west coast, and it's the northernmost airport in the world with scheduled public flights. The first airport near Longyearbyen was constructed during World War II, and in 1959 it was first used for occasional flights but could only be used for a few months a year. Construction of the new airport at Hotel Niset started in 1973. This airport was opened on the 2nd of September 1975, and in 2014 the airport handled about 154,000 passengers. Lufttransport provides services to two other airports on Svalbard using Dornier 228 turboprop aircraft. There are also regular chartered flights, but with that said, many of the other entries on our list, this airport has seen a few accidents. In 1986, a Cessna 185 crashed immediately after leaving Svalbard Airport en route to Nyland, killing all 6 on board. And in 1996, Vnukovo Airlines Flight 2801 from Vnukovo Airport in Moscow crashed into a mountain about 14 kilometers from the airport. All 141 people on board the Tupolev Tu-154 died, making it the worst air crash in Norwegian history. Number 1. Lukla Airport, Nepal. Tenzing Hillary Airport is frequently referred to as the most dangerous airport in the world. Arriving and departing here must use a single runway, 06 for landing and 24 for takeoff. There is a low prospect of a successful go-around on a short final approach due to the terrain. There is high terrain immediately beyond the northern end of the runway and a steeply angled drop at the southern. Due to the difficulties of successfully landing here, the Civil Aviation Authority of Nepal sets high standards, according to which only experienced pilots who have completed at least 100 short takeoff and landing stall missions hand over 1 year of experience in Nepal and have completed 10 flights into Lukla with a certified instructor. The airport is pretty popular because it's considered the starting point for treks towards the Mount Everest base camp. There are daily flights between Lukla and Kathmandu during daylight hours in good weather, although the flying distance is short. Rain does commonly happen in Lukla while the sun is shining brightly in Kathmandu. The airport was built in 1964 under the supervision of Sir Edmund Hillary, who originally intended to build it on flat farmland. However, local farmers didn't want to give up their land, so the airport was built in this current position. Hillary bought the land from local Sherpas for about $2,600 US and involved them in the building facilities. It's been said that Hillary was unhappy with the runway's soil resistance and that his solution was to buy local liquor for the Sherpas and ask them to perform a foot-stomping dance to flatten the land that served the runway. The runway wasn't paved until 2001, and in 2008, the airport was renamed in honor of Sherpa Tenzing Norgay and Sir Edmund Hillary, the first people confirmed to have reached the summit of Mount Everest, and also to mark their efforts in the construction of this airport. Across mountains, ice fields, and narrow coastlines, these airports reveal how varied and unforgiving the world's landscapes can be. Each one is a reminder that even in modern aviation, nature still sets the terms. The skies may be open, but some landing spots are never simple.